The United States as a whole wastes more than $160 billion of food each year. That amounts to each of us in this room contributing to about 1 pound of food waste each day. Using pair programming, agile methodology, and lots of Slack messages, the FlexCode squad here created the Food Rescue app, which is a fully customizable and user-friendly application. Those bananas going brown? Need to know when to use your avocados by and how to keep your lemons fresher longer? The Food Rescue app provides recipes for the inventory in your kitchen and creates a shopping list, tips on how to keep those items fresh longer, and the perfect shelf life and storage guide. So now that we have you thinking about all the food and money you threw away this week, Deneen will get us started on the app.
Hello. So as part of the front-end development team, before we began our styling, we decided we need to come up with an overarching visual theme for our site. So we began researching various color schemes. We looked up websites similar to the concept that we wanted to create. And we finally came up with that we wanted to create a simple but bold site. And we wanted to make it fun and fresh. And we wanted to convey that throughout every page of the site. So we chose 6 specific colors, which we implemented on every page of the site to further convey this visual theme. We used HTML5 and then CSS3 to create a grid template on our homepage and on our shopping cart page, which you will see later. We then utilized flexboxes throughout different pages of the site so that we can have a more flexible and responsive layout. If we had had more time, we would have worked on making the whole site responsive so that instead of just being displayed here, it could be displayed on mobile and tablet. So that was kind of the beginning concepts that we came up with and the infrastructure. So next, Julie will talk about our next part.
Thank you, Deneen. The user begins interacting with Food Rescue here on the homepage by entering the food items that they have on hand. The food inventory list is created through use of AJAX requests, which makes use of JavaScript and HTML partials to dynamically update only this portion of the page. Otherwise, we would have had to reload the entire page every time a food item is loaded. We thought this was an important aspect for the user, so to improve their experience by making it faster and just smoother. Other features that we added for the benefit of the user are the ability to hit the enter key, so you keep your hands on the keyboard and not have to use the mouse if you don't want to. The app is case insensitive, so it doesn't matter what combination of capitals or lowercase letters the user chooses. The program's going to be able to match it to an item in our repository, and from there match it to a recipe. The list itself will only display an item once. So if the user is distracted and types an avocado 3 times, it's only going to show up once on the list. And that just makes for a cleaner, easier to read list. And finally, as you may have noticed, there's a fun sound that gets heard when an item is added. So once the list is complete, the user hits Find Recipes at the bottom here, and Dan will tell you what happens next.
Thank you, Julie. We used object relational mapping to store information in Spring Data JPA repositories. After the user enters their kitchen inventory, the items are stored in a collection. This collection is compared to a collection of items associated with each recipe in our recipe repository. If the user's entered inventory contains all of the items for a given recipe, it is added to a collection and displayed at the top of the results page. If there is at least one match between the user entered data and a recipe in the repository, it is stored in the collection and displayed at the bottom of the page. Once the recipes are displayed, the user can dive into an individual recipe for more information, which Denise will tell you about.
So as, thank you, Jan, sorry, my apologies. As Alan mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this was built in Java with the Spring framework. And it was completely tested. All aspects of the data repositories were completely tested with Java's JUnit testing framework. And so we started with testing out the individual, so for the model controller, we tested out the individual items. So testing to see if one item can be added successfully, then a second item, and then multiple items. We did the same for the recipe, so testing out, making sure that one recipe managed to functioned properly in the recipe data repository, and then we added subsequent recipes. Then lastly, although it's a relatively small depository, we do have a meal type tag. All three of these things they have an ID that's generated using the generated value annotation. So each individual item, recipe, and tag has an individual ID that tracks it throughout the application, which Lauren is going to explain to you now.
Thank you, Denise. On the recipe page, we wanted to give the user the option to add an item they don't have on hand to their shopping list. With the build out of the shopping cart repository, we were able to create the shopping cart button with Timeleaf in the HTML and CSS. When the user clicks on the button, it will add the item to their shopping list. Americans are the rolled in wasting food. So we wanted to help the user by creating a freshness tips. When the user clicks on the picture, the modal opens up. We were able to build that out with the item repository. And with the tips in the item repository, we were able to use Timeleaf to tie the tips into the HTML and use CSS to style it. To save the user time, we wanted to create a nav bar so they can go directly to the individual pages quicker. We were able to build this out using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. One of the items on the nav bar is the shopping list, and up next is Ty to discuss this page.
Thank you, Lauren. So for the shopping list page, we wanted the user to be able to view their kitchen inventory along with the shopping list so they'll know what they have on hand. To build that, we use test-driven development. All right. Yes, we use test-driven development to build out that functionality as well as to create a relationship between the items and the list itself. Moving forward, we would like to add a date option to each item so that the user knows when each thing will expire. But for now, we just added the shelf life guide so that they can try to figure it out themselves. And now Dan will give us a quick run through of the entire app.
Thank you. As Julie mentioned, we've got the food on hand. We did add a clear food list button. So when the user comes on the site, there will be nothing. So as they enter their inventory, once they're finished adding their inventory, they click the Find Recipes button, and it takes them to a page where they are shown recipes that they have all the ingredients for, or recipes they have at least one ingredient. The user can then click on a recipe to get more information. It will display things like the ingredients, the preparation instructions, and the meal type. On the recipes page at the bottom, we also added the functionality to have the user put in their own recipe by choosing a recipe name. They choose a picture to associate. They enter the ingredients, instructions, and a meal type. When they click the Add Recipe button, they're automatically taken to that recipes page where the picture, the ingredients, and the preparation are shown. And then the recipe is also dynamically added to the recipes list. And Jasmine, take us home.
Again. So you may be wondering how the 7 of us managed to do this with only 4 in-person meetings. We merged and did branching through GitBash, creating feature branches for every new kind of functionality we wanted to add to our system and merging back to the master branch. So we'll leave you here today with a little food for thought. That was a pun. We are over 7 billion people on this planet, of which 925 million are starving, yet we annually lose and waste 1.3 billion tons of food, or enough to feed 3 billion people. Thank you.